Deep in the rainforests of West Africa, there once stood a kingdom of astonishing power, wealth, and beauty. A kingdom so advanced that European explorers could hardly believe their eyes. This was the Benin Kingdom, a mighty empire whose capital city dazzled the world with its bronze masterpieces, towering walls, and thriving civilization. At a time when many European cities were small and struggling, Benin City was a marvel of urban planning and artistic genius. Yet, in a single brutal invasion, the British would burn it to the ground, loot its treasures, and erase much of its glory from history books. This is the story of Africa's City of Bronze, its walls greater than China's, and how the world lost one of its greatest empires. The Benin Kingdom rose in what is now southern Nigeria, flourishing from around the 11th century. Its people, the Edo, built a strong centralized government under the leadership of powerful kings known as Obas. Over centuries, Benin grew into a vast empire, controlling trade routes, conquering neighbors, and accumulating great wealth from ivory, pepper, palm oil, and later dealings with Europeans. But what stunned outsiders the most was its capital, Benin City. European traders and explorers who visited in the 15th and 16th centuries described it as one of the most beautiful and organized cities they had ever seen. The streets were wide and straight, lined with rows of large houses and markets buzzing with activity. The city was clean and carefully planned, with a system of moats and walls that left foreign visitors in awe. These walls were unlike anything the world had seen. Known as the Benin Walls, they stretched an estimated 16,000 kilometers when combined, making them the largest earthworks in the world. Built over centuries, they surrounded the city and its surrounding villages, forming a massive network of defensive ramparts and moats. In fact, they were 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China, and it is estimated that more than 100 million tons of earth were moved by hand to build them. This monumental feat showed the incredible organization, engineering skills, and manpower of the Benin people. Inside these walls thrived a city of art. Benin was world-famous for its bronze and brass sculptures, known today as the Benin Bronzes. These were not just simple ornaments, they were exquisite works of art, cast using advanced techniques called lost wax casting, which even Europeans had not mastered at the time. The bronzes depicted obas, queens, warriors, leopards, and scenes of court life, each piece rich with symbolism and detail. They lined the royal palace, telling the history of the kingdom and celebrating its power. The Oba's palace itself was a wonder. Covering several acres, it had numerous courtyards, shrines, and halls filled with carved ivory tusks, brass plaques, and coral-beaded regalia. European visitors compared it to the grand palaces of Europe. Portuguese traders who first reached Benin in the late 1400s were astonished. They wrote of a city as large as Lisbon, with an army of well-dressed soldiers and markets filled with goods. They traded firearms, cloth, and metals for Benin's ivory, pepper, and slaves. But they also admired the kingdom's sophistication. Benin's government was highly organized, with guilds controlling crafts and trades, and a council of chiefs advising the Oba. Its army was disciplined, and its legal system enforced strict order. Crime was rare, because punishment was swift, and the people deeply respected their king. Yet, for centuries, Benin managed to remain independent and resist colonization while other African states were being taken over by European powers. But everything would change in the 19th century. By this time, Britain had become the dominant colonial power on the West African coast and wanted control over the region's palm oil trade. Benin, however, restricted trade with outsiders and insisted on strict control over foreign contact. This angered British merchants and officials who began plotting to bring the kingdom under their rule. In 1897, a British delegation tried to enter Benin City against the Oba's orders. They were ambushed and killed by Benin soldiers. Britain seized this as an excuse to launch a full-scale invasion. They assembled a massive force of over 1,200 troops, armed with modern rifles, machine guns, and artillery, and marched on Benin. What followed was one of the most devastating acts of destruction in African history. The British forces stormed Benin City, setting fire to homes, shrines, and palaces. They looted everything of value: bronzes, ivories, coral regalia, carved tusks, and shipped them back to Europe. Thousands of priceless artifacts were stolen. The city, once called the Jewel of Africa, was left in ashes. The Oba, Ovonramwen, was captured and exiled, and the centuries-old kingdom was officially annexed into the British Empire. The scale of the looting was staggering. It is estimated that over 4,000 pieces of Benin's treasures were taken, and many are still displayed today in museums like the British Museum in London and the Ethnological Museum in Berlin. These masterpieces, created by African hands long before European colonization, became trophies of empire. Their beauty stunned the world, yet their violent removal symbolized the theft of African heritage. The destruction of Benin was not just the loss of a city, but the erasure of a civilization's soul. Britain portrayed the invasion as a punitive expedition to stop barbarism. But the truth was, it was a calculated plunder of a wealthy African kingdom. The people of Benin were left traumatized, their culture scattered. What had been one of the most advanced and artistic civilizations in Africa was reduced to a colony. For over a century, the story of Benin was told only through colonial eyes, as if it had been primitive and needed European rule. Only recently have historians and activists worked to restore the true story of Benin's greatness. Modern archaeology has uncovered the remains of the Benin walls, proving they were one of the largest man-made structures on Earth. Art historians have shown that the Benin Bronzes represent one of the highest achievements of metal art anywhere in the world. The Obaz dynasty has survived, though stripped of political power, and the royal family continues to lead cultural revival efforts. Across Africa and the world, there have been growing calls for the return of the stolen bronzes. Nigeria has demanded their repatriation, arguing that they are not just artworks, but sacred pieces of their identity. Some European museums have begun to return small numbers of artifacts, but thousands remain abroad. Each returned bronze is celebrated like the return of an ancestor. These treasures are not just relics. They are living connections to the spirit, skill, and glory of the Benin Kingdom. The story of Benin is a powerful reminder of Africa's forgotten greatness. Long before colonialism, Africa had cities as grand as any in Europe, governments as organized, armies as disciplined, and artists as skilled as anywhere on Earth. The Benin Kingdom proves that Africa was not waiting for civilization to arrive. It already had it. The tragedy is that this brilliance was violently interrupted. If Benin had been allowed to thrive, imagine how much more it could have contributed to the world. Yet, even in destruction, Benin's legacy survived. The stolen bronzes, though scattered across the globe, testify to a civilization of genius. The walls, though crumbled, whisper of an empire that dared to build on a scale few could imagine. The spirit of the Edo people endures, proud of their ancestors and determined to rebuild their story. Today, Benin City still stands, and efforts are underway to build new museums to house the returning bronzes and teach the world the truth about this African empire. The world is slowly beginning to acknowledge what was lost. and what was stolen. The Benin Kingdom story is not just about the past. It is about justice, memory, and pride. It challenges the false story that Africa had no history, no civilization, and nothing to lose. It shows that Africa was not a blank space on a map, but a vibrant continent full of powerful nations. The British burned Benin, but they could not erase its brilliance. The city of bronze will rise again in memory, art, and spirit. The Benin Kingdom stands as proof that Africa has always been a cradle of civilization and creativity. It is a story of glory and tragedy, of creation and destruction, of beauty stolen yet not forgotten. It is a story the world must remember, because only when we know the truth can we see the full picture of human history. And the truth is clear. Among the great empires of the world, the Benin Kingdom shines as one of Africa's brightest stars.